What if the smallest ring-bearer in the history of Middle-earth had done what every previous ring-bearer had done? What Isildur did, what Gollum did, what Bilbo nearly did, and simply kept it? What if the courage that carried Frodo Baggins across 2,000 miles of the worst terrain in the world had been precisely sufficient to arrive at the moment of destruction, and not sufficient for the moment itself? And what if the warmth of a ring, held in a cold hand at the end of all endurance, had been indistinguishable from rescue? Today on Scholar of the Rings, we put our scholarship and our grief into answering the question that Tolkien himself addressed in his letters with careful and painful clarity. What if Frodo had claimed the One Ring at Mount Doom? The date is March 25, Third Age 3019. The Sammath Naur, the Chambers of Fire, in the Cone of Orodruin, in the middle of Mordor. The air is wrong in every direction, too hot from the fires below the ledge, which are not fires in the sense of burning wood or oil, but fires in the sense of the earth's own interior expressing itself through the mountain's throat, liquid rock, glowing orange-white. 60 feet below the ledge on which a hobbit stands with nothing between him and it except a narrow bridge of volcanic stone. Too cold from the cave itself, which has the cold of deep places that the heat does not reach, a cold that sits in the rock and comes out through the soles of the feet and moves up through the body in a way that no fire can address because it comes from the wrong direction. Too thick with the smell of sulfur and hot metal and the older, more fundamental smell of something that has been burning since before men walked the world. Frodo is at the ledge. He has nothing left. This is not rhetoric, it is a physical inventory of a depleted system. His feet are damaged. His hand is bleeding where the chain cut him as he moved. He has had no water for 2 days, and no adequate food for much longer than that. He weighs less than he weighed when he left the Shire. He is aware of this, in the way you are aware of things that have been true for so long, they have stopped being new information. 6 months of Mordor, the Mines of Moria, the Mirror of Galadriel, the Dead Marshes, Shelob's Cave, Cirith Ungol, the Ash Plains. The mountain, 6 months of the world at its absolute worst, carried by a hobbit-shaped vessel that was built for the Shire, not for this. He stands at the ledge. He looks at the fire below. He has been carrying the ring on its chain against his chest for 6 months, and the chain's weight is a weight he has stopped noticing the way you stop noticing a wound that has been present long enough to become structural. He lifts it off. He holds it over the fire. He says the words which are his words and also not his words. The voice is his voice. But the voice has been going through the ring for long enough that the ring is in the voice now, the way water picks up the taste of the stone it flows through. I have come. But I do not choose now to do this deed. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. He puts it on. The mountain does not see him do it, not in the way the mountain would see a man or a hobbit do anything. The ring's oldest and most constant property asserts itself the instant it seats on his finger. Frodo Baggins passes out of the world that ordinary sight can register. His body does not vanish from the ledge. It becomes a shape available only to the kind of seeing that the ring itself permits. The seeing that Frodo has used, at Weathertop and at a Moan Hen, to glimpse the Wraith world on the other side of the ring's threshold. What was briefly his to see is now, in reverse, what a very small number of others will be able to see of him. Not a hobbit in the ordinary sense, but a presence in the register the ring operates in, a shape that only the ring sighted, the ring touched, or the ring's own servants can perceive at all. Sam, at the chamber's entrance, hears the words. Sam has been listening to Frodo's voice for 6 months the way a man listens to weather, constantly, without deciding to, for the specific changes that indicate whether the weather is going to hold or break. He has learned to read Frodo's voice at distances and through walls and through the specific muffling that volcanic rock produces. He knows Frodo's voice in every condition it produces. He does not know this voice. The voice is Frodo's in the way that a reflection is the face it reflects, the same information in a different medium, laterally inverted in ways that are only obvious when you know what you're looking at. He goes in. He does not, at first, see anything at all where Frodo was standing. An absence exactly the size and shape of his friend, the ledge and the narrow bridge and the fire below all present and unchanged, and simply missing the figure that should complete them. And then, the way a shape resolves out of darkness the longer you look into it, he does see him, not with his eyes in the ordinary sense, but in the halfway, seeing that 6 months of proximity to the ring. To Shelob's poison, and to the wound he still carries from Weathertop have opened in him, the same halfway seeing that let him glimpse Frodo's ghost-pale face at the ford, at Weathertop, in flashes he was never meant to keep. It is this seeing, and only this seeing, that shows him Frodo now, standing at the ledge with the ring on his hand, present to Sam the way a thing behind glass is present, visible and unreachable in the same instant. The ring finger is the finger of the hand that was bleeding from the chain's cut, and the ring is on it, and the bleeding has stopped, not because the wound has closed, but because the warmth of the ring has done something to the tissue around the wound that is not healing but is also not bleeding, something in between that Sam does not have a word for. The ring on Frodo's finger is warm. This is visible even from the chamber's entrance, in the way that everything about this half-seen Frodo is visible to Sam, and to no one else who might have stood where Sam is standing. The ring is the warmest thing in the room, warmer than the fires 60 feet below, warmer than the volcanic stone, warmer than anything in Mordor that Sam has put his hand near in 6 months, which is nothing he wanted to be near. The ring is warm the way the Shire is warm, specifically, purposefully, in the frequency that a specific person's longing produces, when a specific object has been reading that longing for 6 months, and finally knows exactly what to offer. Frodo is looking at it. Not looking at the fire, which is where they came to look. Not looking at Sam. Not looking at the chamber's stone ceiling, or the entrance, or any of the things that constitute the world outside the hand. Looking at the ring, with an expression that Sam cannot name and will never be able to name, and will spend the rest of his life in the Shire trying to find words for without success. Which is the expression of a man who has been cold for so long that warmth feels like rescue, who has been afraid for so long that peace feels like victory, who has been carrying something so heavy for so long that the moment the heavy thing becomes, instead, the warm thing. The thing that says you were right. You were always right. And now you are safe. The moment of that becoming is indistinguishable from the moment of being saved. The mountain shakes. Above it, the eye of Sauron turns. The Nazgul, circling in the ash clouds above Orodruin, receive their new direction. They change course simultaneously, without signal, without any audible command. They simply turn, the way a flock of birds turns, each one at the same instant. Each one toward the same point. Below them, in the Sammath Naur, Frodo Baggins stands at the ledge of the Crack of Doom with the one ring on his finger, and the specific expression of someone who is not frightened. That is the most frightening thing Sam has ever seen. Aragorn has been at the Black Gate for 4 hours. This is the precise duration of the Army of the West's engagement before the Morannon. 4 hours of controlled dying. The specific, professional, irreversible process of a force that knows it cannot win, and is winning anyway in the only sense available to it, buying time, holding the line, keeping the eye's attention here and not elsewhere. He has been doing this kind of mathematics since he was 20 years old. The math has never been comfortable. He has gotten very good at performing it without letting the performance show in his face. The Army of the West, 6,000 soldiers on a tongue of land before the Black Gate, outnumbered by orders of magnitude, surrounded on 3 sides by Mordor's host, fighting on the specific piece of ground that Gandalf identified as the only viable site for this particular action. Not a battle. A demonstration. The demonstration has been ongoing for 4 hours, and it is costing exactly what Gandalf calculated it would cost, which is too much, and achieving exactly what was needed, which is the eye looking here. Aragorn is in the center of the line. He has been at the center of the line since the engagement began, which is where he has to be rather than where tactics would prefer him, A commander at the center of a disorganized line is a tactical liability, exposed, unable to maintain comprehensive situational awareness. But this is not a battle in the tactical sense. This is a demonstration in the theatrical sense. The army of the West must appear to be a genuine threat, and a genuine threat requires its most credible figure at its most visible position, because the eye evaluates threats the way all intelligence evaluates them, which is by looking at the most prominent evidence first. He is the most prominent evidence. He has been performing credibility in the eye's direction for 4 hours. He does not use the word performing. Internally, he would not be capable of this if he thought of it as performance. He thinks of it as the last thing he can do for Frodo, which is to be entirely convincing for exactly as long as Frodo needs him to be convincing, which is a duration he does not know and cannot calculate and has therefore decided to treat as infinite. He will be convincing until the world ends or changes, whichever comes first. The Nazgul are above the field. 8 of them. The Witch King was taken at Pelennor, which is the one thing that has gone correctly in this endgame. And Aragorn has been tracking the remaining 8 throughout the engagement with the peripheral attention that a battlefield commander learns to maintain for the most dangerous assets in the opposing force. They circle at altitude, which is where they have been throughout. They have not descended to engage. They are serving the same function he is serving. But in reverse, they are credibility insurance for Mordor's assault, the presence of something categorically worse than the orc host below, the reminder to the army of the West that capitulation is available and its terms are negotiable. He knows they are there. He does not look at them directly. Looking at the Nazgul directly, in his experience, gives them information about your psychological state that they will use immediately, and his psychological state is information he is not willing to give them. They change direction. He sees it in his peripheral attention, the 8 shapes above the field, which have been describing slow circles in the same pattern for 4 hours, abruptly and simultaneously alter course. No signal, no audible command. The change is the kind of change that only happens when something large has happened elsewhere. The reorientation of all 8 minds at the same moment toward the same point. The mechanical consequence of a hierarchy that has received new information and is responding to it with the efficiency of a system that has had 3,000 years to minimize its response time. They are flying southeast, toward Mordor, toward the mountain. He sheathes his sword. He does it before he has fully processed what the Nazgul's departure means, because the processing will take a moment, and the sheathing is the immediate honest response to information he cannot yet fully articulate. The sword has been drawn for 4 hours. It has been doing what it was drawn to do, which is to signal to the eye that this force intends to keep fighting until it cannot, and the signal has been accurate because the intention has been genuine, and now something has changed and the signal's relationship to the situation has changed with it, and he will not perform a signal that has become inaccurate. The scabbard receives the blade. The sound of it, steel finding leather in the specific terminal way of a blade that has found its resting point, is too small for the open air of the Black Gate to carry to anyone except Legolas, who is 3 steps to his left and who hears it and looks at him. Aragorn does not return the look. He is watching the Nazgul diminish to the southeast. The orc assault continues. This requires saying because the cessation of the Nazgul's presence above the field does not end the fighting, does not empty the plain, does not stop the dying that has been ongoing for 4 hours. The orcs continue. Because orcs continue, they are not purely Sauron-directed in the way the Nazgul are Sauron-directed. They have violence of their own, aggression of their own. The momentum of 4 hours of engaged battle that does not simply cease when the intelligence behind it relocates. But the quality of the assault has changed. Not the lethality. The orcs are still lethal, are still killing his soldiers at a rate he cannot sustain indefinitely. The intelligence behind the lethality has changed. The coordinated placement, the specific timing of advances that maximize the army's exposure, the precisely calculated application of force at the points of greatest weakness, This has gone out of the assault the way accuracy goes out of a shot when the shooter is distracted. The assault continues. The intent behind it has gone somewhere else. Aragorn watches the Nazgul until they are shapes, and then smaller than shapes, and then not visible in the ash clouds over Mordor. He has been fighting for nearly 90 years toward the moment when the ring would be destroyed. Not continuously, not with every action explicitly oriented toward that point, but in the deep structure of his life. Everything has been organized around the premise that Frodo would carry the ring to the crack of doom, and the ring would end and the world would enter a new age in which Aragorn's particular preparation might be useful. He has held kingdoms in trust, held identities in reserve, held relationships at careful distances, held the kingship unclaimed because the kingship had a precondition, and the precondition was the ring's destruction, and every year he did not claim it was a year he was being faithful to the plan. The Nazgul have flown toward the mountain. Toward Frodo. They do not fly toward Frodo when the ring is being destroyed, because when the ring is being destroyed the Nazgul are destroyed with it, are dissolved, unmade, the 9 rings failing with the one. They fly toward Frodo for one reason. The ring has not been destroyed. He processes this standing at the Black Gate with his sword in its scabbard, and his army dying around him in a battle that has just lost its premise. He processes it completely, in the way that very good military minds process information that invalidates the plan, entirely, immediately, without the negotiation that hope encourages and that he does not have time for. The ring has not been destroyed. The Nazgul are flying toward Frodo. What is happening at the mountain is not what was supposed to happen at the mountain. He stands in the changed battle and understands what he cannot affect, which is everything, and what he can affect, which is nothing, and holds both of these understandings simultaneously in the way that he has held impossible things for most of a century, without letting go of either, without letting the impossibility register in his face. The battle continues. His sword is in the scabbard. He does not draw it again. He is still standing at the Black Gate, still the most prominent evidence of the Army of the West's credibility, still performing the demonstration that Gandalf designed. The demonstration has become a demonstration without an audience. The eye has turned, the Nazgul have left. The intelligence that the demonstration was designed to distract has found something more interesting to attend to. He stands in it anyway. Not from courage, precisely, from the specific quality of a man who has been trained since childhood to hold a position until he is relieved, or until the position is taken, and who has not been relieved, and whose position has not been taken. He stands in the battle that has lost its meaning and fights in it, because the men around him are dying in it, and the dying requires company. And because he is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and because there is, somewhere behind the Black Gate and above the ash plains in the direction the Nazgul flew, a hobbit who carried something too heavy for too long, and may still need the seconds that standing here buys, even if the seconds cannot change what has already happened in the mountain. He stands. The sword stays sheathed. They enter in order of precedence. This is not Frodo's instruction. He has given no instruction about how they should enter. He has given no instruction about anything since the claiming, because the hours since the claiming have been hours of sitting in the ash, of the Sammath Naur with the ring warm on his finger in the mountain, shaking underneath him and his mind doing the specific work that minds do when they have been pushed to the absolute boundary of their endurance. And then handed something that feels like relief. They stop. They rest in the warmth. They do not immediately organize the warmth into action. They receive it. The 8 Nazgul enter in order of precedence, because order of precedence is the only organizational principle they have retained intact across 3 millennia of servitude. Everything else about who they were, the names, the politics, the specific texture of their ambitions and grievances and the civilizations they built and ruled, has been replaced by the ring's direction. What the ring has not replaced, because the ring operates through what it finds rather than by filling a void, is the hierarchy. The hierarchy was present when they received their rings. The hierarchy was present when the servitude began. The hierarchy has therefore been the structure through which the servitude operates. They have maintained their ranks, the way water maintains the shape of the vessel it fills, because the shape was prior to the filling. Khamûl is second, which means he enters second. The first, the largest, the oldest among those remaining since the Witch King's fall, enters and stops inside the chamber's threshold and lowers itself to the floor. Not to one knee, the way soldiers kneel before commanders. Fully, both knees, the great black shape folding in the specific, alien geometry of a body that has not been designed for this posture, and performs it anyway with the complete accuracy of something that knows what the gesture looks like from the outside, and is producing exactly that appearance. Then Khamûl. Then the remaining 6, in sequence, filling the chamber from threshold to wall, each one lowering to the floor in the same geometry, the same completeness, until 8 black shapes are arranged in a formation that faces the hobbit sitting in the ash at the ledge's edge, and the formation is the formation of obeisance, and the chamber is the Sammath Naur, and the hobbit is Frodo Baggins of the Shire, present to these 8 the way he is present to Sam, not as an ordinary sight would find him, but fully, exactly in the register the ring makes visible to anything that serves it. They do not need ordinary eyes to see their master. They were made across 3,000 years to see exactly this. Sam is in the corner. He found the corner in the seconds after the Nazgul began entering. Not a tactical decision, not a choice made from analysis, but the body's automatic production of the most defensible available position when the body is receiving information it cannot process. The corner is solid stone on 2 sides. It is the best he can do. His hand is on Sting, which is glowing blue, has been glowing blue since the Nazgul entered, the elvish blade responding to the proximity of Morgul-forged presences, with the accuracy it has always responded with, which is to say, exactly, and without comfort, and with the specific quality of a tool doing its job in a situation where the job's completion is entirely insufficient for the problem. Sting is glowing blue. Sam is in the corner. 8 Nazgul are on their knees before his friend. He does not draw Sting. There is nothing to draw it at that would produce a useful result. He watches, in the only way he can watch this, through the half-seeing the journey has opened in him, the same seeing that let him find Frodo at the ledge. Frodo is looking at the 8 kneeling shapes with the expression that Sam identified in Chapter 1, and has been trying to categorize since. The expression that is not frightened, which is wrong, which is the most frightening thing Sam has encountered in 6 months of encountering frightening things. Sam categorizes expressions with the accuracy of someone who has been reading one person's face for his entire life, and has, through that reading, developed a vocabulary for Frodo Baggins that is not available to anyone else. He knows Frodo's fear face, and Frodo's grief face, and Frodo's determination face, and the many subtle gradations between these. He does not have a word for this face. He does not have a word for it because this face has never appeared on Frodo before, and it cannot therefore be in Sam's vocabulary for Frodo, and the absence of the word is itself information. This is something Frodo has not felt before. Which means this is something the ring has produced that Frodo's own capacity could not produce. Which means whatever is happening behind this face is happening in a space that Sam cannot reach from the outside. The first Nazgul speaks. Its voice is the voice Tolkien describes for the ringwraiths in their less aggressive manifestations, the terrible quietness of something that has been stripped of everything except will, and whose will is so concentrated by the absence of everything else that its speech has the quality of a physical object rather than a sound. It does not speak loudly. It does not need to. The Sammath Naur is a chamber, and the chamber carries the voice to the corners, and Sam hears every word. How may we serve the Master of the Ring? Sam looks at Frodo. Frodo looks at the first Nazgul. The mountain shakes, not violently, not the structural event it was at the moment of the claiming, but the sustained, lower-frequency shaking of a geological system that has received a disturbance and has not yet returned to equilibrium. The fires below the ledge are still audible, a bass note, continuous. The sound of the earth doing what the earth does in places where the earth's interior is close to its surface. Frodo says nothing for a long moment. Then he says, "Stand up." His voice is his voice. The way the voice Sam heard at the claiming was his voice. Recognizably Frodo, the vowels right, the Shire accent intact. The specific inflection of a hobbit who learned to speak from people who had been speaking that way for generations. And also not quite his voice. For the same reason, the ring has been in it long enough to leave a residue, a quality of weight that Frodo Baggins' voice does not naturally produce. The authority that comes not from character but from the thing on his finger. The 8 Nazgul stand. They stand with the precision of beings who have been performing obedience for 3,000 years and have achieved mastery of its outward forms simultaneously, without visible communication between them, with the complete and perfect synchrony of a hierarchy that has reduced its members to extensions of a single organizing principle. They stand before the hobbit, and their standing is indistinguishable from the standing of genuine servants before a genuine master. And this is the performance's entire mechanism, not irony, not contempt, not the visible gap between the pretense and the reality. Nothing that Frodo could push against. Nothing that would alert the depleted mind of a 6-month Mordor survivor to the distance between what is being offered and what is true. They are giving him exactly what his self-righteousness wants to be given. Sam understands this, in the wordless way that Sam understands things, not through analysis, not through the scholarly framework that Frodo or Gandalf would apply to the situation, but through the specific, embodied intelligence of a person who has been watching power dynamics for 40 years in the Shire and knows, at the cellular level, the difference between a person who serves because they choose to and a person who performs service because something larger than their choice is directing the performance. He knows the gaffer's posture when he's doing what he wants to do in a garden he loves. He knows the gaffer's posture when he's doing what Lobelia Sackville Baggins has insisted the garden needs. The distinction is not in the action, it is in the body around the action. The Nazgul's bodies are performing service, they are not serving. Sam keeps his hand on Sting, which keeps glowing blue. He does not say anything. There is nothing to say. He does not have the authority to tell 8 ancient ring lords that they are lying, even if saying so would change anything, which it would not, because Frodo cannot hear it, cannot hear the words, cannot receive them. The ring on his finger is warm, and the 8 kings are standing at attention, and the chamber is the chamber where the world was supposed to end and instead pivoted. And what the pivot produced is a hobbit in ash telling ancient horrors to stand up, and the horrors are standing, and the warmth in the ring is the warmth of a thing that is giving Frodo exactly what 6 months in Mordor has made him most desperate to receive, which is the confirmation that he was right. He was right to come. He was right to carry it. He was right that it should have been him. The Nazgul are standing in a line before him, confirming it. The corner is solid on 2 sides. Sam does not move from it. Sting is still blue in his hand, has been blue since they entered, will be blue as long as they remain. The honest glow of an instrument that knows exactly what is in the room with it, and does not editorialize about what knowing it means. Sam holds it. He does not draw it. There is nothing to draw it at. There is no chair in the Sammath Naur. There is nothing for Frodo to sit on except the volcanic rock, and the master of the Sammath Naur, standing before 8 kneeling kings with the ring warm on his finger, slowly understands this, and sits down on the floor, and the 8 kings wait, and the chamber holds them all, and the mountain continues to shake. And Sam stands in his corner with a glowing sword and nowhere to point it, and this is the situation, complete, configured, and missing one throne. Khamûl the Easterling was, before the ring, a king. This is the foundational fact of his current existence, and also the fact most completely inaccessible to him in his current existence, which is the specific architecture of the trap that the 9 rings set. They do not replace the self. They hollow it. Khamûl's kingship is still in him somewhere, the way the frame of a building is still in the ruin of a building. structurally present, load-bearing in the original sense, no longer visible from the outside. He was a great king of the East, in the Second Age, before Sauron came to the Eastern peoples wearing the face of gift-giving and the voice of order. He had armies, he had cities, he had the specific kind of legitimacy that only very old dynasties possess, the kind that accretes across generations until it becomes indistinguishable from natural law. His family had ruled the eastern territories so long that his people did not have a word for the territory that did not also contain, implicitly, the name of the ruling house. He accepted the ring because a king who refuses power is a king who has decided to be replaced by the king who accepts it. He understood this with the clarity that 3 generations of dynastic politics had given him. He accepted it with the pragmatism of a man who had been managing existential threats since he was 17 years old. He accepted it, and the ring closed around him, and what it closed around him was exactly what he was, which was a king, organized hierarchically, accustomed to command and to service, accustomed to the specific grammar of power that moves through courts and armies, and the accumulated deference of people who have been deferring for so long that deference has become the texture of their relationship with you. The ring did not change this grammar, it simply changed the direction it pointed. 3,000 years of pointing in Sauron's direction. He bows to the hobbit with the technical precision of a man who was taught the forms of court obeisance, in a palace he can no longer remember, by tutors whose names are gone, in a language that has been dead for 2 millennia. The bow is correct. Not performatively correct, not the bow of someone demonstrating that they know how to bow, but the bow of someone whose body contains the knowledge of how to bow as a physical memory stored below the level of any accessible thought. The way the body retains the knowledge of its earliest learned movements after the mind has lost the context for them. He bows from the waist at the angle that signifies submission to a superior, holds the position for the duration that the form requires, straightens, his hands, when he straightens, are empty. The weapon he has borne through the long centuries of his captaincy is set on the floor of the Sammath Naur behind him, where he left it before he entered. He set it down at the threshold, not because he was instructed to, not because the performance required it, but because the weapon is the instrument of a specific relationship to power, and that relationship and this performance are not compatible. It is the instrument of terror. Its presence communicates one thing: the being that carries this will break you if you do not comply. Bringing it into a chamber where the performance is of service, where the communication required is "I am yours to direct," would be a costume error in the way that arriving at a feast in armor is a costume error, not wrong in the tactical sense, but wrong in the communication sense, producing a signal that contradicts the signal the occasion requires. He set it down. His hands are empty. He stands before the hobbit with empty hands, and the correct bow completed and waits. Frodo looks at him. In the 6 hours since the claiming, the mountain has been shaking at intervals, and Sam has been counting the intervals, and 6 hours is the count that the intervals produce. Frodo has been looking at the Nazgul with the attention of someone trying to read a text in a language they do not quite speak. He can see them. He can perceive them in the way that ring-bearers perceive the wraith world, not the black robes and the terrible absence, but the presences beneath, the kings they were, the shapes of authority that have been preserved by 3,000 years of ring servitude in the amber of their own former greatness. He can see them the way you see shapes in ice, distorted, ancient, entirely real beneath the distortion. He cannot command them. He has not tried to command them, which is the one correct instinct his depleted state has produced. He has not given an order he cannot enforce, because he understands at some level below articulation that giving an unenforceable order produces a different outcome than not giving the order. What he has done is ask. He has asked them, since the claiming, in the register of a hobbit who is not accustomed to asking beings of this magnitude for things, tentatively, with the specific quality of a person who cannot quite believe that the answer is going to be yes, and is therefore asking in a way that preserves the possibility of claiming they didn't really ask, if the answer is no. The answer has been yes. Every time. He asks Khamûl, the forges. In Mordor. What do they make? Khamûl says, what you require them to make, master. Frodo says, they should make plows. He says this the way someone says something obvious, not as a command, not with the weight of a decision behind it, but with the quality of a person noticing that the answer to a simple question is available. The forges make weapons. Weapons cause the conditions that produced the last 6 months of his life. He would like the last 6 months of his life to not happen to anyone else. The solution is available. Change what the forges make. He says it the way the gaffer says those beds need turning, which is not a negotiation. It is the statement of a thing that is going to happen, because it obviously should happen, and someone has finally noticed. Khamûl says nothing. Not because he is refusing, he is filing the statement. He will report it when he reports, and Sauron will do with it what Sauron does with the statements of whoever is currently holding the ring, which will depend entirely on how much longer Sauron finds it convenient to allow the current holder to hold it. In the meantime, the statement hangs in the air of the Sammath Naur, with the quality of a thing that has been said and received and acknowledged and will not be acted on, which is the quality of most things that are said to beings who are performing service they have not chosen. Sam, in the corner, watches this exchange. He has been watching for 6 hours, has watched Frodo speak to the Nazgul with the earnest seriousness of someone who believes they are being heard, who believes the bows and the yes-masters, and the complete, precise performance of deference constitute actual deference. Sam grew up in Hobbiton. Hobbiton is a small place where people have been navigating the distance between what is said and what is meant for the entirety of their social existence, and Sam has navigated this distance since childhood with the accuracy that practical intelligence produces, when it is applied to social information consistently and without illusion. He knows what a person looks like when they are doing what they are told. He knows what a person looks like when they are performing doing what they are told, while waiting for a better opportunity. The Nazgul are performing. He knows this. He cannot do anything with the knowing. The ring on Frodo's finger is warm. He can see the warmth from across the chamber. Or rather, he can see its effect on Frodo, which is the same visible effect that warmth always has on someone who has been cold too long. The specific softening of the posture that happens when a body is no longer allocating resources to the maintenance of a defense against cold. The slight dropping of the shoulders, the unclenching of the jaw. Frodo is warmer than he has been in 6 months. This warmth is the ring's offering, and the ring's offering is the cage, and Sam can see the cage from the corner, and he cannot open it from here, and he has been the person who carries things, and the thing he needs to carry his friend out of is not a physical thing. The weapon Khamûl set down is on the floor outside the chamber. Sam can see it from the corner, a long shape in the volcanic ash, too large to be anything but what it is, the instrument of a king's power set aside for the performance of a king's submission. It is the satisfaction beat, and Sam looks at it with the attention it deserves, which is the attention of someone looking at the most honest object in the room. A weapon designed to break things. Set down by the thing that carries it, so that the thing that carries it can perform the posture of not breaking things, while everything it was designed to do waits intact and patient on the floor. The weapon does not need to be held to be what it is. Neither do the 8 wraiths who are currently performing service for a hobbit in a volcanic chamber. Sam keeps his hand on Sting. It keeps glowing blue. This is the one honest thing in the room that is on his side, a blade that cannot perform, that can only respond to what is actually present, that has been responding accurately since they entered, and will continue to respond accurately until something in the room changes. Nothing in the room is changing. They leave the Sammath Naur on the morning of the 2nd day. Not because Frodo instructs it. He has not been giving instructions in the organizational sense, has not been planning the logistics of departure or the route to any destination, or the sequence of events that follows from being the ring's bearer in Mordor with 8 Nazgul at something that looks like his disposal. He has been sitting in the ash and talking. This is what he has been doing for 18 hours, talking to the Nazgul and the register of a man who has a great deal to say about how the world should be different, and has, for the first time in 6 months, an audience that does not argue. He has said the forges should make plows. He has said the roads should be repaired. He has said the people in the outlying territories of Mordor, because there are people, bound labor, the ash workers and the miners and the people who maintain the infrastructure of a Dark Lord's domain, and who have been doing it under conditions that Frodo, who has had 6 months to observe those conditions from ground level, finds unacceptable. He has said those people should have enough to eat. He says all of this to the Nazgul, who receive it with the performance of deference that has been ongoing since they entered and knelt, and who act on none of it, because acting on it would require coordination with the actual administrative apparatus of Mordor, which runs on Sauron's will and not on Frodo's, and Sauron has not yet arrived. And in the interim the Nazgul are performing a waiting function, and the waiting function does not require them to actually implement agricultural reform. The departure happens because the first Nazgul, after 18 hours of receiving Frodo's vision for a reformed world, determines that the Sammath Naur is becoming structurally unreliable. The mountain's shaking has been ongoing since the claiming, and its character has been changing, the tremors longer and closer together, and conveys this information to the group through whatever channel the Nazgul use when they communicate, which is not speech, which Sam cannot hear or intercept. They rise. The first one says, "The master should rest in a more comfortable place. We will escort you." And Frodo says, "Yes, all right," in the voice of someone who has been sitting on volcanic rock for 18 hours and finds the suggestion reasonable. Sam says nothing. He follows. The plain between Orodruin and Barad Diyar is the specific landscape that the word Mordor produces in the minds of people who have not been here, and that 6 months of being here has not improved for Sam. Black rock and ash. The occasional pool of cooled lava that has a surface like old skin. The hot metal smell that has been so constant that Sam has nearly stopped noticing it, except that he has not quite stopped noticing it. The mountain continues to shake behind them at intervals. The sky above Mordor is the sky above Mordor, wrong in color, wrong in temperature, wrong in the way that everything in Mordor is wrong, which is not dramatically but persistently, the wrongness of a place that has been organized around principles incompatible with the things Sam considers normal for a very long time. They walk in a formation that Sam has not requested and does not control, he and Frodo at the center, 4 Nazgul ahead of them, 4 behind. Not encircling, the formation has an opening, which is the direction of travel, which is toward Barad Doctor. He is free to leave the formation, in the sense that no one would physically prevent him from stepping sideways out of the column and sitting down in the ash and refusing to continue. He is free, in the sense that stepping out of the column and sitting down in the ash in the middle of Mordor is not a meaningful exercise of freedom, because it produces no outcome except dying in Mordor alone, rather than arriving in Barad Doctor with Frodo. He is not. He stays in the formation. Frodo is walking beside him with the quality of someone who has recovered something. Not recovered in the sense of restoration to a prior state. Frodo is not his Shire self, is not the Frodo of Bag End who read and smoked and walked in the autumn fields and was happy in the specific, sufficient way of people who are well suited to their lives. He is someone else now, someone the ring has been making for 6 months and is continuing to make. And the making is visible in the way he holds himself, the shoulders back in the specific posture of someone who has been cold and is no longer cold, the chin up in the way that people hold their chins up, when they feel, for the first time in a long time, that they are allowed to take up vertical space. He says to the air, not to Sam, not to the Nazgul, to the air of Mordor, as though the air is listening, which under the current circumstances it may be, the roads should be fixed first. If the roads are fixed, the food can move. If the food can move, the people can eat. If the people can eat, there's no need for the fighting. Sam says, "Mr. Frodo," Frodo says, "the Shire worked that way. Everyone had enough, because everyone could get to what they needed. That's all it is. Make it like the Shire. Sam says, "Mr. Frodo, I need you to look at me." Frodo looks at Sam. The eyes are his eyes. The gray-blue of the Baggins line. The specific depth that Tolkien uses to signal that something important is happening in the interior of the person behind them. The eyes look at Sam with the full, present attention of Frodo Baggins, who has always been capable of genuine attention when he chooses to apply it. The eyes see Sam. And in the seeing, Sam sees that Frodo sees him, and that Frodo sees a person he loves, and that Frodo is not afraid, and that Frodo is warm, and that the warmth is being given by the ring. And that Sam cannot reach behind the warmth to the cold that would make Frodo feel the situation clearly. He cannot reach there. He has carried Frodo up the mountain. He has, on the last slope, put Frodo on his back, and carried him with the literalness that the metaphor usually reserves for itself, physically, with his own legs under both of them, when Frodo's legs stopped working. He has been the person who carries, and he has been good at it, and he has never in 6 months found a thing that was too heavy for him to at least attempt, and this is the first thing. He cannot carry Frodo out of the warmth that the ring is providing, because carrying requires something to push against, and warmth doesn't push. He says, "All right, Mr. Frodo." He says it in the voice he uses. When he says "all right, Mr. Frodo," and means something more complicated than the words, which is a voice Frodo can always read, has always been able to read, has known since they were children, but Frodo is warm, and warmth, in the configuration the ring has produced, is also a filter. And what comes through the filter is the literal content, all right, not the more complicated thing beneath it. He follows. The Nazgul escort them across the plain. They do not hurry. The pace is the pace of a group in which the smallest member is also the most important member, and the most important member's pace is a hobbit's pace, which is not fast. Sam watches the Nazgul's backs, 4 ahead of them, moving at hobbit speed with the quality of things that are capable of moving much faster and are choosing not to, and thinks about the weapon Khamûl set down at the threshold. He thinks about it for the entire walk. It will be picked up. He has no doubt that it will be picked up. The setting down was a gesture, and gestures are temporary, and the gesture's purpose was to produce an impression of service, and the impression has served its function for 18 hours in the Sammath Naur, and is continuing to serve it on the Ash Plain, and at some point the impression will no longer be required, because Sauron will arrive, and Sauron will provide the ring with a different configuration of facts, and the Nazgul will pick up their instruments, and the performance will end. He does not know when. He knows it will happen before anything Frodo plans has time to happen. The roads will not be fixed. The food will not move. The people will not eat better. The Shire will not be built in Mordor. These things will not happen, not because the idea is wrong. The idea is not wrong. The gaffer would have said the same thing about any failing garden. Fix the paths first, then the soil, then the planting. But because the person who has the idea does not have the power to implement it, and the persons who have the power to implement it are performing compliance while waiting for their actual master to arrive. Sam walks in the formation, in the ash, under the wrong sky, beside his friend who is warm for the first time in 6 months. And the plows Frodo described will never be made, and Sam knows this. And the knowing is the weight he is carrying now, which is different from the weight of the ring but heavier in the specific particular way that certain kinds of knowing are heavier than physical things. The formation moves at hobbit pace across the plain. Barad-dûr is visible ahead of them, has been visible since they left the mountain, the way very large things are visible from very large distances. It is large in the way that numbers become abstract when they are large enough, not impressive, not frightening, simply real in a way that exceeds the category of impression or fear. It is there. They are walking toward it. The ring on Frodo's finger is warm in the cold air of the plain. Sam said all right. He follows. The feel of Galadriel has been in Sam's breast pocket since Cirith Ungol. He put it there when they left the tower, when Frodo was restored to himself after the worst of the tower's events, when Sam returned the ring and the mithril coat and the few other objects that constituted their surviving equipment, and Frodo accepted them with the depleted gratitude of someone receiving back the tools they need for work they have not yet finished. Sam kept the file, not because Frodo couldn't carry it. He could. But because Sam has always been the one who carries the things that need to arrive at the destination, and the feel was the thing he least wanted to risk losing in whatever came next. And whatever came next turned out to be Mordor's ash plains, and then the mountain, and then this. It has been in his pocket for 3 days of walking, and 18 hours of sitting in the Sammath Naur, and a day and a half of the walk across the plain to wherever the Nazgul are escorting them. He has felt it against his chest through all of it, a small warmth, separate from the cold of Mordor's air, the specific warmth of something that has been held close to a living body long enough to take on that body's temperature. He has not used it since Shelob's lair. He has not needed to. The file works in darkness, against the creatures of darkness. And the walk across the ash plain has been dark in the abstract sense, and not in the literal sense, and the creatures of darkness walking alongside them have not been doing the things that the Fial was designed to address. He takes it out on the second afternoon of the walk. Not because the situation calls for it in any tactical sense. Because he needs to try something. He has been carrying Frodo in the metaphorical sense for 6 months, and in the literal sense for the last slope of the mountain, and he has found, in all of that carrying, that doing nothing is the hardest thing he is capable of, and he has been doing nothing in the specific sense of useful action since the claiming, and the weight of the not doing has reached the point where the attempt at something, even something he cannot confirm will work, is preferable to the continuation of the not doing. He holds the phial up. It is a small glass vial, or something like glass, whatever material elvish craft uses for vessels that need to contain starlight without losing it, which is a material Sam has not encountered in any other context, and does not have a word for beyond the phial. He has held it a dozen times. Each time the object in his hand has had the quality of something that is more than its material components. Small, yes, and smooth, yes, and carried on its surface the specific coolness of glass that has been held at a temperature below the hand holding it. But also lit, underneath that surface, with the potential of the light it contains, not glowing, not radiating, but carrying the readiness of a thing that will respond when asked. He speaks the words that Frodo used at Shelob's lair, Aya Arendil Elenion an Kalima. The elvish words, learned from Frodo's speaking of them in the dark of Shelob's cave, in the moment when Frodo said them, and the Fial responded, and the light that came was the most honest thing Sam had seen in months. He says them now in the voice of someone who is not elvish, who does not speak elvish in any formal sense, who learned these words by proximity and need rather than instruction, and who speaks them now in the direction of his friend, walking beside him in the ash plain escort, warm with the ring's warmth, talking to the air about agricultural reform. The Fial responds. Wrong it responds, that is the first fact. And it matters. The field does not fail to respond, does not sit dead in his hand, does not produce the particular non-response of an object that has simply stopped working. It responds, which means the light of Arendil's star is still in it, which means whatever the Fial is connected to, the blessing, the lineage of light that runs from the trees through the Silmaril, through Arendil's brow, through Galadriel's gift, through this small glass vessel, that connection is still present, the Fial is still what it is. But the light that comes is yellow, not the silver white of the light Sam saw at Shelob's lair, not the cold pure clarity that drove Shelob back and drove the watchers at Cirith Ungol's gate back, and that Sam has been carrying in his chest pocket as a piece of evidence that there are still things in the world that are simply and cleanly good without qualification or ambiguity. This light is yellow, and yellow is wrong, wrong in the way that a note is wrong when the instrument is in tune and the player is skilled, and the note is still wrong. Because the wrongness is not in the production but in the frequency. in the relationship between what is being produced and what the situation requires of it. The light flickers. Sam has not seen the file flicker. He has seen it respond and not respond, has seen it work and seen it unneeded, has never seen it do what it is doing now, which is to try and fail in the space between those states. The light comes up and comes down and comes up again at a different frequency. The yellow brightening and then cooling. The object in his hand working at a problem it cannot solve with the resources it has. It is not broken. It is honest. It is an instrument that responds accurately to what it is being asked to illuminate, and what it is being asked to illuminate is a situation in which the light it carries, the light of the elvish, the light of the blessed, the light that is specifically and constitutionally opposed to the darkness of rings and their bearers, has an ambiguous relationship to the specific target. The target is Frodo. The light of Arundel's star cannot point simply and cleanly at Frodo right now, because Frodo right now is warm with the ring, and the ring is on his finger, and the light cannot go past the ring to reach Frodo without going through the ring, and going through the ring produces yellow instead of silver-white. Yellow is what honest light looks like when it has been asked to reach through the one ring to the person inside it. The flicker stops. The light dies. Not dramatically, not with a sound or a visible extinguishing, not in a way that the Nazgûl ahead of and behind them would notice or react to. The file in Sam's hand goes dark in the way of a candle that has guttered, quietly, with the specific quality of a thing that has made its best effort, and has found the effort insufficient for the situation, and has stopped. He stands in the ash plain with the dark phial in his hand. The Nazgûl continue walking. Frodo continues walking. The plain continues being the plain. Sam looks at the phial. He has been, for 6 months, the person who provides the thing that is needed. This is his function in its deepest expression, not carrying in the physical sense. Not the specific action of loading equipment or climbing a mountain with Frodo on his back, but the underlying posture of the person who looks at what is needed, and finds what is available, and applies what is available to what is needed. He found lembas when it was needed. He found rope when it was needed. He found the feel when it was needed, when Frodo dropped it at Shelob's lair and Sam retrieved it. He has been finding and applying for 6 months. The feel cannot reach Frodo. This is the information. It is accurate. The instrument that was designed to reach into darkness and produce light has encountered the specific darkness of a ring-bearer who is warm and does not feel the darkness as darkness, who is receiving the ring's version of light and cannot feel the difference, and the phial's light cannot get past the ring's light to the person who needs the actual light. Sam turns the phial over in his hands. He looks at it. He looks at Frodo, walking beside him, talking to the air. He puts the phial back in his breast pocket. He does not throw it away. He does not leave it in the ash. It is Galadriel's gift, and it is Frodo's. And he has been carrying it. And he will keep carrying it, because carrying is what he does. And the phial going dark does not mean it will not come back on. Even if Sam cannot right now see the conditions under which coming back on would be possible. He puts it away. He does not say anything. There is nothing to say. He continues walking in the formation, at hobbit pace, across the plain in the ash. The feel is dark against his chest, where the warmth of his body will keep it at body temperature, as it has been for 3 days. He can feel its specific shape through the pocket's fabric. He knows its shape. He has been carrying it long enough to know it without looking. The plain continues. Barad Diyar is closer than it was. The outer gates of Barad Diyar are not gates in the sense that Minas Tirith has gates. Minas Tirith's gates are the gates of a civilization that builds for the long term, the great gate of the lower city, the layered defenses of the 7 circles, the specific architectural grammar of a people who have been defending something they love for 3,000 years and have expressed that love in stone. The outer gates of Barad Doctor are the gates of a will, enormous beyond what structural function requires, black in the specific way of things that have absorbed light for so long that absorption has become their nature, and possessed of the quality that the tower itself possesses, and that Sam has been feeling since Barad Doctor became visible on the horizon. Which is the quality of a thing that exists primarily as a statement and secondarily as a structure. The statement is, you do not enter here unless you are brought. Sam is being brought. The Nazgûl stop at the outer gates, not because the gates are closed, because the gates are open, have been open for the duration of their approach. The specific openness of a thing that knows you are coming and has arranged itself accordingly. They stop because the Nazgûl have escorted the Master of the Ring to the Master's destination, and the Master's destination is inside. And inside is where Frodo is going, and Sam is not where Frodo is going. The first Nazgûl does not turn around to deliver this information. It simply stops in the gate's arch, and the stopping is the communication. This is the line. Frodo says to Sam, without looking back, in the distracted voice of someone whose primary attention is elsewhere, "Wait here." He says it the way he would say it in the Shire, in the voice of a person running an errand who has left their companion outside a shop, who will be back shortly, who expects the companion to be in approximately this spot when they return. He says it completely without irony, without awareness of what the instruction requires of Sam in this specific location, which is to wait in the ash plain outside the gates of the Dark Tower in the middle of Mordor, with no water and no clear destination, and no confirmed timeline for return. Sam says, "Yes, Mr. Frodo." Frodo goes through the gate. The 8 Nazgûl follow him. Not all 8, 4 continue inside with Frodo, and 4 arrange themselves in the gate's arch in a formation that is not explicitly blocking Sam's entry, but is explicitly not inviting it. They stand in the arch and do not look at Sam and do not speak, because they are performing the role of honor guard, and honor guards do not engage with the people outside the door they are guarding. Sam looks at the 4 shapes in the arch. They do not look back. The gates do not close. He is free to approach. He is not free to enter. These are, again, not the same thing. He sits down. He does not find a place to sit. He simply stops walking, and the stopping becomes sitting, the body executing the transition from the one state to the other without consulting the will, because the will is occupied with a calculation that the body does not want to interrupt. He is in the ash plain immediately before the outer gates of Barad Doctor, which is a sentence that would have been meaningless to him 3 years ago, and which is the sentence that most accurately describes his current position. He opens his pack. Inventory is the action he performs when performing is possible and direction is unclear. He has done this throughout the quest, when they waited for Gandalf at the Prancing Pony, when they sheltered in the hollow of a tree root in the Midgewater Marshes, when the Fellowship rested at Lothlórien, and Sam had 40 minutes with nothing to carry and nothing to plan for, and the inventory was the shape that not carrying took. He opens the pack and checks what is there. He is a hobbit. He is thorough. The thoroughness does not require a reason to be applied. It is simply what thorough people do when they need to do something. Lembas, 3 pieces. Wrapped, the rope. The small cooking pot he has been carrying since before Lothlórien, which has not been used as a cooking pot in weeks, because there has been nothing to cook and no water to cook with. Sting, on his belt, still glowing faintly, lower now than in the Sammath Naur, reduced to a blue that is closer to suggestion than statement. The Nazgûl at the gate presumably at sufficient distance to produce this reduction. The file, dark, in his breast pocket. A spare pair of socks. This is what 6 months of the most significant journey in the Third Age has left in a hobbit's pack. 3 pieces of waybread, a rope, a pot, a sword, a dead light, and a spare pair of socks. He takes out the water skin. He holds it. He has been holding it in the sense of carrying it since before Mordor, has had it on his hip in the standard location for a water skin on a journey, in the location that made it accessible without requiring him to open the pack, in the location of something that will be needed regularly and should therefore be reachable. He has carried it to the Sammath Naur, and back down the mountain and across the ash plain, and to the outer gates of Barad Dr. The last water in it was drunk on the mountain's lower slope before the final ascent. He drank the last of it and gave Frodo the last of his own skin's water before that, which is the arithmetic of the quest's final days. Frodo needed it more, so Frodo had it. Sam calculated that his own endurance was sufficient for the remaining distance without water, and the calculation was correct, and he is sitting in the ash plain before the gates of the Dark Tower without water, and the skin is empty, and he is holding it. He turns it over in his hands the way he turned over the file. The skin is good quality. He bought it in Bree before the quest began, or rather, Gandalf's preparation had included it, or Bilbo's preparations had. The details of who actually purchased what in those early days have blurred, in the way that details blur when they are many months ago, and the months have contained enough subsequent experience to blur much larger things. It is good leather, properly cured, maintained with the care that Sam brings to all equipment, the stitching re-waxed when he had wax, the stopper checked at every stop for seal integrity. He has been a good steward of the skin. The skin has been a good skin. It is empty. He looks at it. He has been the person who carries things for the entirety of his life, not just the quest. But before the quest, in the gaffer's garden, and in Bag End's service, and in the ordinary, particular business of being Sam Gamgee, who is a person defined in his own deepest sense by having things to carry, and carrying them. He has never, until this moment, been the person who has nothing left to carry. Frodo is inside. Sam is outside. The carrying that mattered, the 6 months of it, the actual weight of it, the specific achievement of having gotten Frodo to the mountain, and gotten him up the mountain, and stood in the Sammath Naur while Frodo said the words and put on the ring, that carrying is complete. It is complete in the wrong direction, which means it is complete in the only way completions in the wrong direction are complete, which is done, and not able to be undone, and producing from the doing the specific condition of a person who has performed their function and has nowhere further to perform it. He has no destination. He has had a destination for 6 months. The destination organized everything: the route, the pacing, the decisions about food and water and rest and when to push and when to stop, the allocation of resources between himself and Frodo that required constant recalibration as the resources diminished and the destination came closer. The destination was Mount Doom, and then the crack of doom specifically, and then the ledge in the Sammath Naur, and Frodo standing at the ledge. He arrived at every successive version of the destination. He has no next version. He sets the water skin down on the ash. He picks it up. He sets it down. The gates behind him do not close. The 4 Nazgul in the arch do not move. The plain extends back the way they came, toward Orodruin, which is visible as a dark shape against the sky, its shaking reduced to a low intermittent tremor that Sam can feel through the ground even sitting down. The sky above Mordor is the sky above Mordor. Nothing in it is encouraging. He has an empty water skin, a dead light, 3 pieces of waybread, a sword, a rope, a pot, and a spare pair of socks. His friend is inside the Dark Tower with 8 servant wraiths and the most dangerous object in the world on his finger. His friend told him to wait here. He is waiting here. He does not know what he is waiting for. He does not know what he is in the absence of the carrying. He has always been the one who carries. He does not have a version of himself available that is not carrying something, and the something is gone, and the skin is empty, and the light is dark, and Sam Gamgee sits in the ash of the plain before the gates of Barad Dûr, and holds an empty water skin in both hands, and does the only thing left available to him that constitutes an action in any meaningful sense. He waits. The chamber is too large for him. This is the first and most constant fact of Frodo's 3 days in Barad Dûr. The scale is wrong. Not wrong in the way that Mordor's scale has been wrong throughout the journey. Wrong in the way that very large things designed for very large purposes are wrong when the person inside them is hobbit-sized. The chamber's ceiling is high enough that the upper portion exists in a permanent architectural dusk, the lamplight from the walls not reaching it, the darkness above not descending. They simply coexist, the light below and the dark above, with the line between them at a height that suggests the chamber was calibrated for occupants of approximately twice Frodo's height. The chairs are proportional to the ceiling. He has not sat in them. He has been sitting on the floor. The Nazgul brought food. This he has eaten, because his body requires it, and because the food, which is Mordor food, dense, gray, nutritionally sufficient in the way that things are sufficient when sufficiency is the only standard being applied, is food. And he has not been in a position to apply higher standards to food since approximately Rivendell. He has eaten, he has slept, he has spent the hours of wakefulness continuing what he was doing in the Sammath Naur, which is talking about how the world should be arranged. He has been talking to 4 Nazgul who receive his vision with the complete, expressionless, entirely performed deference that has been their posture since the kneeling in the Sammath Naur. He has told them about the Shire's organizational principles, the way the mail runs, the way the Bounders keep the peace without anything so dramatic as an army, the way a good growing season produces surplus that goes into communal store against a bad one. He has described, in more detail than the journey allowed him to miss it, the specific taste and smell and weight of a proper second breakfast. He has described, with the precision of a person who loves a place the way you love things you have nearly lost, the quality of the light in the Shire in October, which is the color gold, is before it becomes autumn, and then the color the world is for 3 weeks in which everything is exactly right. The Nazgul receive all of this. They act on none of it. He knows this, somewhere below the warmth. The warmth is not a perfect filter. It was never designed to be. The ring is not an instrument of comfort, but of domination. And domination requires the dominated to remain functional enough to be dominated. And functional requires a residue of accuracy. And the accuracy that remains in Frodo's residue is sufficient for him to notice, at intervals, that the Nazgul have not yet begun repairing roads. He notices it the way you notice weather changing, in the background of his attention, as information that has arrived and is being filed without producing an immediate response, because the warmth is in the foreground and the warmth is large. He is sitting on the floor when the chamber changes. The change is not in anything visible. The lamps do not flicker, the temperature does not drop or rise or alter in any direction that produces a sensation requiring description. The Nazgul in the chamber's 4 corners do not move. What changes is the quality of the air. A pressure is the closest word. A quality of density that the air acquires when something very large is present in the same space and is present as a physical fact rather than as a presence at a distance. The air in the chamber becomes the air of a chamber that contains something other than Frodo and 4 ancient wraiths. The ring on his finger pulls. This is the first time the ring has pulled since the claiming. In the Sammath Naur, at the claiming, it pulled toward the fire, the direction of its own destruction, which was always the direction the ring did not want to go, which was why the pull at the claiming was the pull of resistance, the ring asserting that it would not go there. This pull is different. This pull is the pull of recognition, the specific quality of a thing that has been separated from its source, moving toward the source, not because it is being moved, but because it is moving. Because the source is here, and the source produces in the ring the pull of return, the way a magnet produces in iron the pull of alignment. Frodo feels the ring slide along his finger. Not violently. Not with the force of a thing being taken, with the ease of a thing returning, of water finding its channel, of a sound finding the instrument that was shaped to produce it. The ring is on his finger, and then the ring is moving, and then the ring is not on his finger, and the sequence of these events happens without any force being applied to him, without any pain beyond the absence of the warmth, which is the specific total cold of a thing that has been providing warmth for 3 days and is no longer providing it. The warmth is gone. The cold that replaces it is not Mordor's cold, is not the environmental cold of ash plain air or volcanic stone. It is the cold of being Frodo Baggins, in a very large chamber in the dark tower, without anything between him and what he is, which is a hobbit, 50 years old, wearing what remains of his travel clothes, sitting on the floor of a room built for something larger than him, with no food he chose for himself, no water except what the Nazgul brought, and no plan and no Sam. There is something else too. In the moment the ring leaves him, he is visible again. Ordinarily visible, for the first time since the ledge. A hobbit that any eye in the world could now see, if any eye but Sauron's were present to see him. The half-seeing that let Sam find him, that let the Nazgul kneel to him, ends the instant the ring is no longer his to wear. He is simply Frodo Baggins, sitting on a floor, seen the way anyone is seen. He looks at his hand, the finger that was bleeding when he claimed the ring finger, the finger around which the ring seated itself in the claiming, is bare. He looks at the floor. The ring is on the floor, and Sauron's hand is closed around it. The hand is not a hand in the way that hands are hands. It has the structure of a hand, the geometry of it, the fingers and the palm and the thumb arranged in the specific configuration that hands use when they close around something, and the ring fits into this configuration with the completeness of a thing that has found the place it was made to inhabit. But the warmth that the ring gave Frodo is not in this hand. The hand is not warm. The hand is what hands are when they are the hands of something that poured its warmth into gold 300 years ago, and has been a cold intelligence since, a will without the warmth that would make it anything other than will. The chamber becomes what it was built to be. Frodo does not look up. He looks at his hand, the empty hand, the bare-fingered hand, the hand that carried the ring from the Shire to the Sammath Naur, and held it at the claiming, and was the ring's location for 3 days, and is now just his hand, which is a hobbit's hand, which is the correct size for a hobbit, and not for this room. He looks at it for a long time. He is very small in the chamber. This is the proportion the chapter has been building toward since the first moment he sat on the floor, the ratio of Frodo to the space he is in, which is the ratio of a hobbit to a Dark Lord's receiving room, which is very small. He is intact. He is breathing. He is, in every external particular, Frodo Baggins, the gray-blue eyes, the Shire voice. The hands that have been good at carrying things and are now empty. Nothing has been taken from him except the ring, which was not his, and the warmth, which was the ring's gift, and was therefore also not his, and the vision of the Shire built into Mordor, which was the ring's amplification of his longing and is therefore also not his. What remains is what was always his. It is sufficient for a hobbit in the Shire. It is insufficient for this room. The chamber holds him. Outside the gates of Barad Dr, on the ash plain, Sam is waiting with an empty water skin and a dead light and a spare pair of socks, waiting for something to happen next. Outside the Black Gate, the army of the West is still managing the end of a battle whose premise has been resolved in the wrong direction. Outside the borders of Mordor, the Third Age is calculating what comes after this. The Fourth Age begins. It begins in silence in a chamber too large for the creature sitting on its floor. Frodo looks at his empty hand. He arrived. That was always what he had, enough to arrive. The rest was supposed to be someone else, a creature who loved the ring past reason, a mercy shown in a dark place, a providence that works through the small and the broken, and the ones who ran out of strength at exactly the right moment. Gollum was not there. The mercy had no instrument. Frodo sits on the floor of the Fourth Age in the silence that follows the end of everything he carried, and he is exactly the size he has always been, and the room is exactly the size it was built to be, and the distance between those two measurements is the precise distance between the world that was and the world that is. Small, complete, and very, very quiet.